Hi everyone, welcome to episode
4
of the Big Boy Show. We are back and better than ever. We're all doing well. Me, Jason, and Craig are back. Craig kind of looks dead, but like it's okay. And we have a special guest today. Great interview. I just kind of wanted to run over some sports things just before we go into that. So I know that in terms of like the first round of COVID testing, I know that Purdue had a few players test positive, or at least one. Rutgers had a few.
One person in the athletic department test positive.
Yeah, they were very nondescript when they said this.
Last I saw, we had four positive cases at Rutgers.
And then I know that Maryland had 0, which is good, but
good for you.
Yeah,
flex, but okay.
That's Caroline, by the way. We're gonna get into her interview in a little bit. But yeah, so good. I guess that's pretty good moving forward. And then we're gonna see what happens with that. I know in terms of ban news, the American Athletic Conference announced that they weren't going to have any bans in terms of performances for pregame, postgame, and halftime this year, but they might have something in terms of being in the stands during games, which doesn't kind of like negates the purpose of having a band if you're going to like have the band there but not have them perform, but also have them be like I don't know. I guess they're gonna figure that out.
Yeah, they sidelined all spirit squad and band, so cheerleaders won't be on the field, dance teams won't be on the field either. I believe mascots also will have to be in the stands, which I don't know how any of that's gonna work. But you guys are probably more concerned with what's gonna happen with the band. Right now, the word on the street is that bands are sidelined, and then if they're on the so when they're in the stands, that's up to stadium and university regulation on whether they're there or not. Other than that, it's up to that. So if it's something that if you don't like this, if you want to try and find a better thing to do, you can email the email athletic directors from the AAC and email the conference and be like, "Yo, change your policy."
Not to interrupt, Craig, and we will be talking to someone from the American next week. I think that's what we're planning on. We were able to find someone from the University of South Florida. So shout out to him. Shout out to Tampa. Shout out to the best team in baseball, Tampa Bay Rays. No cap. But yeah, so that's kind of like a rundown of what is kind of going on with sports. But you know, we wanted to just kind of touch upon that, and we wanted to make sure that we got to our big interview this week with Caroline. All right, so we are back with our interview this week. Jason finally buckled up his bootstraps and found someone from Purdue. So welcome, rising senior Caroline Pomeroy. Caroline, how are you?
I'm fantastic. How are you doing?
We're doing pretty well. So obviously we're just gonna try to ask you as many things as possible about your experience at Purdue and all of that stuff. So why don't we start at the beginning with how you got into marching band? Was it in high school? Did you get interested once you went into college? How did all of that begin?
Okay, so we're going to go way back to when I was 10 or 11. My dad was a drum set player, and my mom was, way back in the day, she did color guard for the Blue Devils. So I've had a mix of drum corps, butt guard, and then percussion, but not marching band. So I was raised kind of in both worlds. And I learned how to do a drum roll, granted, not a fantastic drum roll, but a drum roll on a block of wood that my dad stole from a construction site, and like 2 of his old drum set sticks. And that really got me, that really inspired me to, I don't know, it just sparked a love for it, And then I started concert band 6th grade, and in 8th grade, my high school, the one that I was going to go into, they had their student body split in half because they were overcrowded. So they cut half the students and threw them in a new high school. So my high school was recruiting 8th graders for marching band. So I tried out for bass drum. I made it. So I did an extra year of marching band. So I started in 8th grade, technically. And then the next year I did snare, and I did snare for 4 years. And then I got to Purdue. And then I joined late at Purdue because my parents convinced me it'd be too much of a time commitment. I went in for a concert audition. Dr. Nave, our percussion director, said, what the heck are you doing here? And then sent me out with a drum, and I joined 2 days late. Here I am. So I've been doing marching band for 9 years at this point.
So with that, so I'm actually now curious. Why did your parents, I guess, try to convince you that marching band was going to be, I guess, too much of a time commitment once college came?
Well, I'm from Virginia, so there's not many Big Ten schools out this way, you know. So
Hey, there's
when
one.
well,
There's one.
just
A
one
couple.
though.
It's still the best one.
Well, either way, I went all the way over to Indiana. Well, it's certainly better than at least one of the other schools in this
State.
chat. Anyway, I was.
Greg's so sad. He's like,
Okay, athletically.
Academically, we're all even.
Yeah, academically, I got no qualms with you at Rutgers.
Are you rah-rah?
I have some qualms with that chant, though. That was, I don't know about it. Are you rah-rah?
Hoorah, hoorah, Rutgers rah.
There it is. Great.
Chief called. He said this ain't it.
Steve
Okay.
Michael thinks it is.
Well,
what was I?
Okay, so we were in Indiana. You were talking about
Yes.
being in Indiana, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Right. We were talking about why my parents. Okay.
Yeah.
Because I was going out of state and I was going to be far away, and I think it was just a natural. They were worried about me abusing my academics because out of state tuition, you know. And then as soon as I called them after Dr. Nave said, "Get out there with the drum," and I said, "I want to do this," they were honestly fully supportive. They just needed to hear me say, "I want to do this," and it's good from there.
So, because one of your family members, or your mom was in color guard for Blue Devils, did doing DCI ever pop up in your mind as something that you wanted to do, or was that like a little bit too much for what you were considering?
For a long time it was. I thought, like, for some years I tried out here or there in like a DCA group. I tried out for George Mason's indoor drum line, just kind of to get experience. I wasn't expecting to make it because this was like my sophomore year of high school. I was just jumping into the fray. But for a while it was, yeah, we had some corps come visit local high schools and practice during the summer, and I went to see that. And my mom knew a lot of the percussion and just other instructional people for all these corps just from old connections. So I would actually get to go on field and talk with them, and it was really cool. It was really cool. So I would say she influenced it a lot. And then later, as I started to think about the actual logistics that went behind drum corps and the cost, and it just didn't appeal to me nearly as much. I feel totally comfortable just doing marching band rather than pushing through the drum corps. As cool as that I think that would be, I don't think it's for me.
Mm. Now, I wanted to go back to high school and then go back to like just like when you were looking at colleges. Since you are from Virginia and you brought up George Mason, I thought that was kind of something interesting. But so in high school, so you started out with bass drum. Did you eventually progress to snare as you're currently doing at Purdue, or were you bass drum all 4 years in high school, or all 5 years?
I started bass drum. I did bass 1 my freshman year because I am small. I am 5'2". 8th grade, I was even smaller. So I couldn't carry much above bass 1. And we did indoor drumline every year too. So that was, marching band was fall, indoor drumline was spring. So when we got to the spring, I tried out for snare and I made it. So I technically only did bass drum for half a year. And then I've been doing snare ever since then.
Okay. And then when you were looking at schools, obviously, thinking about George Mason and their pep band, but also the fact that they don't have a football team to where like you can go out and actually perform for marching band. Did you, when you were looking at schools, did the thought of making sure that a school had a marching band cross your mind, or was it you wanted to find the school with, I guess, the right fit with the right school in terms of academics, or what things were you looking at when you were choosing schools?
Okay. I'd like to start by saying that George Mason's indoor drumline, you don't need to actually be enrolled at George Mason, considering that they even thought about letting me in when I was a sophomore in high school. But I've never looked at George Mason as a school I wanted to go to, like academically. I didn't mention this before. I'm studying aviation management at Purdue.
Oh, geez.
It sounds really fancy. I promise it's not as fancy as it is.
No, but that's awesome though.
Thank you. Yeah, Purdue is a fantastic aviation program.
Yeah,
So
I
that
have a
was something I
friend that
looked at.
studied aviation as well, but he
Yeah,
didn't go to
yeah,
Purdue. He went down to Florida Tech, so
yeah.
he was looking at different schools. But I know that he said Purdue and Ohio State were two big ones, and
Hmm.
Notre Dame, or I mean
Yeah,
no,
there's
North Dakota was another one.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah, no, it's a very specialized major. It's not
Hmm.
like, like engineering. Engineering is at way more schools. So when I was applying, I applied to 5 schools, 2 of which were in state, Purdue Tech and UVA. I only applied to big schools. I only wanted to go to schools that had a high student population. I'm not really sure. It just was much more appealing to me than going to a smaller school. And I honestly didn't even know about Purdue in general. I knew I didn't follow any college football. I didn't.
Probably
There
better
was
that
nothing
way.
that. Yeah, there was nothing that popped up to me that was like Purdue is a standout school. And my mom actually made a list of 10 schools that I should apply to if I wanted to apply to aerospace engineering, because that was my initial thought that I would try to do. And Purdue was on that list. So I applied, filled it out, and Purdue accepted me. Not for aerospace though. They said pick again. So I picked aviation management. Yeah, that's strange. I don't ever hear anyone say that like they know somebody that's happened to them or that's happened to them. Every time I say that, it's like a weird occurrence.
That is really weird. I've actually never heard of them
Hmm.
doing anything like that.
Yeah,
I
they
guess
said
maybe
okay.
like engineering, and if you want to like go into engineering tech, but I've never heard like aviation to or aerospace engineering to aviation
It
management.
just sounds like they're like,
A
nah,
bit of
sorry, you
a
can't do that. You just got to pick another one. It's
That
like,
is exactly what happened. Yeah. They
So it's like
said,
we like you, but the program's full. So pick something else.
yeah, they said you're not good enough yet. So pick something else.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, I had a decent GPA, decent SAT score, but not enough to get in to Purdue for aerospace engineering. So I applied to Purdue. They were the only one accepted me, but they said, "Screw you, pick something else." So I did. And the only other
Isn't
school
that
that
nice?
accepted me, yeah, it made me feel so great. And the only other school that accepted me was my safety. But they gave me a large scholarship because it was my safety and it was academically, they had low standards and I was above their standards. So they would have given me a huge scholarship. So it would have cost little to nothing to go there, but it's like a school of 500 people. They do like English teaching, like they do generic majors. It just wasn't something I was interested in. So I made a deal with my parents and they let me go to Purdue. So here I am.
Aren't you the slightest bit happy that you didn't end up going to UVA? Because
Yes.
God, I can't stand the people that go to UVA.
No?
I'm sorry. No, they're so unbearable. They were unbearable with basketball because they didn't win anything, and then they finally won something. It was like, I mean, you're from Virginia, so I don't know if you're a Nationals fan or not, but like it reminded me of Nationals fans where they're like, "Oh, we're so good, like we have all this stuff," and then they finally won, so now they're legitimized. But like up until then, it was like you're not legitimate. Oh God, this is gonna hurt, isn't it?
Well, I don't think so. I don't think
like
it'll hurt.
Okay, that's not too bad.
Right.
Just a hat.
By the way, I
I
love the picture behind you.
Oh, thank you. That was a birthday present. Here, hold on. There it is.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I love this thing. I forget what it's called, but it's like a weird abstract Labrador.
It's a dog.
Jay chillin'. Yeah.
Doggo picture.
It's something like Crazy Dog or something. It's like an art style. They have a bunch of paintings of the same format. This is just the bigger one that they have. They have a lot of like Yorkies and stuff. It's funny. I don't remember what it's called though.
Yeah, but sorry to all of our Nationals fans listening. I'm not trying to be mean to them. It's just like it was one of those things where it's like you didn't have any clout because you didn't win anything, and then once you finally won something, everything that you said before was legitimized. So now I'm angry about it. But like I'm coming around on Nationals fans.
That's kind of how I feel about Eagles fans too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but then the Eagles won the Super Bowl, so like.
Exactly. So it kind of warranted out for like a year, but now they're back to everything.
I don't know. That was fun when they won. I won like $10 from a friend because I was like, I think we bet on it. He bet on the Pats, and I bet on the Eagles, and we just put $5 in. So I ended up winning $10. I was pretty happy.
Nice. Well, there you go.
It was great. So I guess back to talking about what you've done at Purdue. Did you want to, so now as the drumline captain, did you want to take on some position of leadership? Did you take on a position of leadership in high school, and then you want to do the same thing in college, or how did that work out?
Yeah, so when I was in high school, I was the unofficial drum captain for 2 years. And then I was a drum captain my senior year, co-drum captain with another girl snare, actually, who came up with me playing snare for 3 of those 4 years. And when I got to Purdue, and I wasn't thinking about it when I came, because obviously I decided I wasn't going to do marching band. And then when I got into Purdue and I was starting to experience what the program was like, and getting comfortable with campus, and just adjusting to college life, I was like, this is totally something I can take on and conquer, especially because you go through a program and everyone's going to try their best, but nothing's going to be perfect. So you notice problems that you're like, okay, I could fix this if I was in a position of power, of influence, in which I could tweak the program, fix this problem. So yeah, honestly, I've always been somebody whose leadership role is like appealed to me, and I always find that I strive, or I thrive rather, in a position in which I can tweak things as I go, rather than just rolling with broken systems and whatnot.
Yeah.
How does leadership and percussion, like, how is that any different from because I heard you were the overall like percussion lead. So like, what does that mean for you? Like, what do you have to do then? Because you're also like, you lead the snares, but then you also lead the entire percussion. So like, how does that work?
I understand. It's somewhat like just a section leader. I'm the drumline section leader. So like how the trumpets, they have like 5 or 6 ones, but then one of the ones is the section leader. It's kind of like that. I do give, as the overall, like, my job is not anymore solely surrounding my instrument. I'm surrounding 3 other instruments plus the big bass drum. So I, plus technically the drum majors, but don't worry about that. Yeah, fun fact, at Purdue, the drumline, the drum majors are technically a part of the drumline because they need a home. So I, as the drumline captain, technicalities.
Technicalities, you lead the entire band. I mean,
there you go.
Hey, technicalities are technicalities. We're not here to judge.
Exactly.
So basically, I have to give some semblance of autonomy. I can't think of the word.
Autonomy, are you looking for?
Yes, that's the one. Yes, I have to let them do their own thing, kind of, because they understand their instrument and their style much more than I do. But I'm there kind of to put out fires and whatnot. So we all have, we have our 1 and our 10, so our section leader and assistant section leader per each instrument. So we only have 1 of each. And then one of the ones is just picked as the overall. But also, like Dr. Nave's like right-hand man, essentially, doing what she wants and making sure it happens, spread throughout the other. It's kind of like being a general manager over a bunch of like supervisors.
Okay, I see what you mean now.
Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I was curious about asking you, since we've I guess addressed it a little bit. So being a female in drumline, and I know we discussed this just before we started, but being a female in drumline isn't necessarily something that's like a crazy big thing. It seems to be that a lot more males do it than females. Is that, I guess, throughout your marching band career, have you kind of seen the same thing, and have you felt like that? I guess, how has it felt like being a female in drumline, and now as the drumline captain, being the person who is now in charge of everyone, including the drum majors by technicality? How is that?
I think in general, males are more attracted to being a drumline rather than females. I think a lot of the times women are intimidated by just, I don't know, the sheer masculinity that tends to be involved in drumline organizations. And I don't know, I also feel personally, I've experienced this a little bit when I started in high school, but I feel that women feel like they are pushed out much more, and they're expected to achieve more than their male counterpart just to be seen as equal, if that makes sense. So all through middle school and all through high school, I worked crazy hard to get good and to be top. I think I was only not first chair for like a week in 6th grade. I think I was top of the line, like the first chair, all through middle school and all through high school, except for like 1 week. I worked crazy hard to maintain my skill level so I could be seen like as somebody that they should respect, at least in that sort of field. And I feel that it carries over, especially because there's just so many more men that are involved in drumline, that their expectations are a little lower, because, you know, women, especially short women such as myself, are seen as more frail, or, you know, they can physically do less, and quite frankly, it's BS, I think. But I've worked hard to be where I am and to be seen as somebody who can achieve this. I do also think, especially like at Purdue as like a D1 school and everything, everyone who, you know, especially in the Midwest where marching bands are competitive as heck, and they thrive and their skill level is really high. My area is not like that, by the way, but you get basically everyone who auditions for drumline was like their drumline captain or their best whatever. So everyone who auditions was like their best snares or their best quads or whatever it was. So everyone kind of has like an alpha male like superiority thing, and to be like a female, like a small female who isn't normally seen as somebody that these guys need to be, I don't want to say threatened by, but like as somebody like who they can respect, and somebody who can do what they can do, if not better. You need to have, women need to push a lot more, and they need to be a lot stronger, I think, mentally and emotionally, to deal with that pushback that they might get from guys. If you tell a guy that he's doing something wrong and his alpha male kicks in and he's like, "Whoa, no," you're like, well, yes, you are doing that wrong. You know, I think I need to be a lot, I need to always not have, sorry, my train of thought is derailing a little bit. I just need to always maintain some sort of level of like strength and confidence, much more so than I think a lot of male section leaders have had to do so in the past. Mm-hmm. On that note as well, I think I get questioned naturally a lot more than male section leaders would, especially in drumline, just because they're all alpha males and they all were section leaders at their high schools and everything. I think it's really easy for them to look at me and not even realize that they're thinking it, but think, oh yeah, I know better than she does.
Well, I was gonna say, so at Purdue, I guess, was the reaction of you becoming drumline captain, was that something that kind of took some people aback, or like, have people gained a level of respect for you, not including gender, just like as a mm-hmm. drum player, or as a drummer? That's not a drum player. That was a dumb statement. You can cut that out, Craig.
Semantics.
Semantics. Cut that out, the B-roll. But so as just as a drummer, do, like, at least at Purdue, do they really care about, I mean, is there that thing of like what you were talking about, you know, like seeing gender and saying, as you were referring to, with like asking more questions and that kind of stuff, or is it just like, this is how well someone plays compared to this is how well someone else plays, and you deserve the role because you're better than anyone else in terms of your actual technical playing?
I think both kind of play a little bit into it. When we do our student leadership auditions, we only audition really with Dr. Nave. We do an interview with Dr. Nave and another one of our directors, but everything else is just with Dr. Nave. And when we do the playing, she is a doctor, and she has a doctorate in mallet performance and concert percussion. So she knows what she's looking at. So she'll sit there with a highlighter and the sheet of music and just highlight every mistake.
Oh, I
you
hate
made.
that so
And then
much.
Yeah, right? She's like 4 feet in front of you. So of course you could see, if you're paying attention, every single little thing she highlights. Excuse me. And somehow, I'm not even sure how she counts it, but she will go through beforehand and count how many possible mistakes there are to make within an audition piece. So let's just say there's 500 notes in a piece. She'll say, okay, each note you can be a little ahead of the time, you can be behind it, you can play too loud, you can play too soft, you can whiff it, you can play a shot when you didn't mean to. So let's just say at 500 times 10. Okay, so you can make a total of 5,000 mistakes, and she will count every mistake you make. And it's literally a numerical tally that she does. So she will have a list of our ranks numerically by the least amount of mistakes that we made.
Oh God, where were you at on the list?
I actually, this year, was number 1 ever. I kicked butt. I had the least mistakes, I think she said she's ever had.
So wait,
leave it to Purdue to turn
you had
music
one?
into
I think she said I had
numbers
1 or 2.
game.
Yeah,
you had
the
1 or 2
school doesn't have a music school.
Quantify music scores.
Yo, hold up. You had 1 or 2 out of 5,000. Wow.
I don't know if 5,000 was the number.
I mean, but
It's
like,
probably more like 10,000.
It was a long one.
That's
I will say.
insane.
That's
But
the
yeah,
same thing with like a lot of our auditions, though. Like, I think from what I remember from Boiler Brass, like Professor Conaway will sit there, he'll be like looking at the music, and you'll start playing, and then like you'll notice out of the corner of your eye if you like missing out, he'll be like, and it'll just, it's so disheartening.
He'll make a big deal out of it.
It's like, oh.
You're like, stop.
That's insane, though.
Yeah, like I said, I've worked hard for 9 years to be the top of whatever percussion thing I'm doing. So I worked really hard on that, because this year I really did want to be the overall section leader, and never hurts to kick butt in a music audition. But so that's the numerical part of it. But another part is also like we have multiple parts for our leadership audition. We have the playing audition, we have an interview in which they ask us a few questions, the generic ones like what's your biggest weakness and how are you working on it, stuff like that. And then we do a teaching portion in which everyone who's auditioning for student leadership is basically thrown on a stage when we all are teaching each other how to do a list of things, and all the instructors are walking around and seeing how we teach. So there's no real numerical way that you can say somebody's a better teacher than somebody else. So they look at that from their standpoint, and they also look at your past experiences too. So if they see a lot of personal growth, or if they see like last year you were an assistant section leader and you really stepped up, and this year auditioning to be like the section leader, they will consider the fact that you kicked butt in your assistant section leader position. So it is kind of a combination of numerical as well as like just common sense. Do they know what they're doing? Did they gain respect from all these other people? Do they have a lot of emotional problems? Like, did they get in a lot of fights? How did they handle this situation and that situation? So a lot of factors are considered when it comes to the leadership positions.
For teaching, actually, do you guys do it with ours? Like, are you guys
Yes.
the whole band? I've never
Yes.
I've never like done the teaching audition with a member of the drumline, but so if you when you're up to teach, because like during our teaching audition, guys, basically like you have your own segment of time where you teach like a technique to your little group. But the problem is we have like percussion and we have like horn line, and then we have like woodwinds who all have different ways of like
We also have
obviously
like auxiliaries.
of like holding instruments and stuff. So it's kind of like, so I guess my question is like, do you think like do you have to teach the drum? Like if you were with me in my group, would I have to learn how to like be a percussionist, or like do you learn like an overall like technique for the whole band?
You would have to learn our fundamental. I one time had to teach low chair, and I had no idea how to low chair. because the drumline doesn't do like any sort of, we march like any normal like high school marching band would. We can't bring our knees up. We're not Wisconsin. We're not jumping. We gotta knee our drums otherwise. So I had to teach high chair one time. Also, learning high chair was rough.
Oh
But
yeah.
So like if we were the first people to teach like chapeau and everything, like our attention position and whatnot, you would learn ours the same way that if you were teaching it, we would learn yours, and that would just be our fundamental for the hour or so that we're working through it.
So how do you feel about like the other bands, like for example, I guess Wisconsin, where they actually do their stop on top or their jump march with the band? And I think actually Penn State does too, because I think they have their drums like very far out and kind of up.
Oh my, yes,
So
they do.
so they're able to like march with the rest of the band. And like, is that something that you kind of like wanted to do, or you're very happy that you don't have to do?
Oh hell no, I don't want to do that. I'm so fine where like not. God, I don't want to roast Penn State here, but their pregame like harness drum setup is ridiculous. It's ridiculous.
I think it looks
And
kind
we
of
can
cool.
roast Penn State as much
You
as we
think?
want here.
I think it looks pretty cool.
It looks dumb as hell. It looks so bad. I just don't understand. The drum is like their chest height and like a foot away from their bodies.
It looks very uncomfortable when they're just like,
oh my God, it's
high.
so bad. Like for your joints, like for your shoulder. Oh my Lord. Yeah, it's
Keeping
bad.
your arms up that high and
but even like
trying to drum. Oh my, I can't even imagine.
Ohio State's also weird too, because they have it.
Yeah, they have a rope.
their sads are on their snares are on the sashes. And,
Yeah, they're really high up too for that.
I guess I don't know if you would know, but is that like a tradition thing, or is like?
I could tell you 100% that is a tradition thing. When I'm not gonna get too deeply into the history of marching snare drum, but essentially they were rope drums, like what you'd see in like a traditional, like way back when military, when they would use a drum to march and step and stuff. They were traditional drums that'd be tilted on a rope because it was just one joint strapped around your shoulder. So it'd be tilted like this. That's why I have my drumstick. That's why the left hand is held like this, because if your drum is at an angle, you could play like this rather than playing like this.
Oh.
So that's why sometimes you see a snare that's tilted a little bit to the left. It's kind of to keep, it's a lot easier to hit the bead where you're supposed to if the drum is tilted, though it's not impossible if the drum is flat to play it correctly as well. You just need to tweak your technique a little bit. So yes, the answer to your question is yes, that is 100% a traditional thing.
Huh.
That's why that grip is called, that grip is called traditional grip.
But you know what? That makes sense.
There you go. Yeah.
I was just trying to learn what the heck the high chair was. Is that just like your marching technique? Like,
we actually do a low chair.
Oh, whatever.
So
I don't know.
We do it at 45. I don't think I've ever used the high chair, but it's just our normal one's a 45-degree like thigh angle, and then the high chair is a 90-degree.
Oh, so you guys step down like this instead of like rolling?
I don't. I just roll step.
She does.
Okay, so you roll.
I roll step and crab.
Okay, but Jason, you don't roll step, is what you're telling me.
Well, we do during halftime. We don't do our low chair for halftime, but we do low chair for pregame, and I like pregame, and I like doing the low chair.
Okay, yeah, sorry, I was like trying to figure it out, and then I started watching one of the halftime shows. I think it was from last year, and then like y'all started doing like the Cotton Eye Joe or something like that.
Oh,
and I was like, yo, what's going on here?
That's actually our fundamental. We do that down the street.
Oh yeah, that's how we march normally. Yeah, you'll just see us doing like the Macarena. It's like down the street, yeah.
Oh, it looks great.
But
that dance show was funny.
Our Purdue like fundamental, I think, from what I've seen, is very different from the other marching bands. Like the way we it's gonna get real technical, but the way we put our knee up, and it's more of like a kick out and not like a bicycle is what you want to avoid. And that's really different from, I think, how it's taught in the other Big Ten bands.
Okay.
But that's just what I think.
Okay. I'm trying to think of other things. Okay, so since you're the first person in a few weeks that's actually in their marching band, Caroline, do you and also someone who, well, I mean, because we've interviewed a few alumni, or like a few people that have like just recently graduated. But since you're someone who is preparing for next season and someone who is in leadership. Do you have any information, or has any information been divulged in terms of what you guys are planning to do for next year?
Yeah, a little bit. I'm not sure how much of it I can actually talk about because
As much of it as you can talk about without getting in trouble.
Well, all I know is that they've made a ton of reactive plans. So whatever the university decides to do, whatever football decides to do, they have a plan for all these different possibilities. They've thrown around ideas such as we might be more at risk for dry cleaning our uniforms. So we might do an alternative uniform that's a lot more simplistic. That was one idea. They were throwing around trying to figure out how to social distance kind of in the stands.
Okay.
But I don't know how that would work.
You could just put someone in each section, just put 3 people in each section,
Mm-hmm.
and then if there's a play, you just hear 3 guys and you go, yeah.
Yeah, we would sound like butt if you.
You tried to spread that out all across the entire stadium.
That would be so
timing
good.
issues would be tremendous.
That would be so great.
I would so bad.
I would pay good money, not great money, good money to see that.
Good money. Yeah, I don't believe you for that. Yeah, they were. I don't know. There's just been a lot of possibilities that they've thrown around, but nothing concrete as of yet. I do know, especially with the announcement with the Indy 500, that they're for sure having it on August 23rd. That we are going to participate in that as last year's band. So we're inviting the seniors who graduated last year to come back. And
that's so cool.
I have a weird gripe about that though. What if I'm sure there's someone in our band that's immunocompromised, and I know that if you were in last year's band and you make the band again this year, that you have to go to the 500. Is that true, or is that just
no? So, well, I don't know details about it yet. All I know is that if you were in last year's band, you have the opportunity to participate in this year's Indy 500, or technically last year's Indy 500. So they'll invite seniors back. I'm not really sure about members who audition and don't make it again this year, because it's August 23rd is right after our band camp, which is
it's going to be a great
band
week.
hell. It's a week of hot band fun. So
fun. Emphasis on the fun.
Emphasis on the fun.
At least the freshmen don't have to do the 500.
F for fun.
All of our rookies don't have to do the 500.
Emphasis on the F in the word fun. Yeah, man. At least I don't have to carry a drum that week. It's not going to be hurting and exhausted.
Well, that's
and then
good.
We'll get to the Indy 500, and then I will be dying. I will be legitimately dying. Man, oh God, it was so hard.
Well, isn't there supposed to be a NASCAR race in and around that same time as well? Isn't NASCAR and the Indy 500 going to be happening relatively the same time? I could be wrong.
I have no idea.
I think you might be right.
I mean, we only know about the 500 because
I'm gonna check.
So what do you guys actually do at the Indy 500? Because I've heard Jason mention the Indy 500.
Watch the cars go vroom vroom.
We drive the cars. We're actually the drivers.
Watch them go vroom.
Oh yes.
We do.
Yeah, I won last year.
So essentially, we'll show up and we will march around half of the track, so the curve of the track.
Okay.
And that's a big track, right?
Line. It's big. The hardest part is the angle of the track.
It's steep.
Oh, yeah.
It's a lot steeper than you might think.
I know it's
right
steep.
Hip joint is in serious pain by the end of it because you're marching like this because you're at an angle.
It's 2.5 miles.
I guess it would be more of a this would be more of a question for Jason because
yes.
I guess you don't high step, but do you high step that or do you?
Yes, we do.
Oh gosh.
Oh no!
It's better to be closer to the bottom of the track.
Yeah,
I'd imagine
less of an angle there. So I wasn't on the end, but I was the one next to the end on the track,
Dude,
and I was okay.
That is terrible.
Yeah.
I'm
so
sorry.
So we'll cross the finish line, and when we cross the finish line, it's a tradition for the seniors to kiss the finish line, like the bricks.
That's so awesome.
Yeah,
oh
so
my
we'll
God.
have drumline people doing their absolute best because the harness is underneath their jacket, so our torso is stuck in a locked position.
See,
so
the sports fan in me is
fall
going
over
nuts right now.
Yeah,
Oh,
it's really
that
cool.
is
so
so
do that
awesome.
right at the very end when everyone's kissing the finish line, our form is gone at that point because everyone's dropped out to try to kiss it, and they'll run ahead and
People have like
That's-
other people's instruments. They're just like holding three
Oh, I
instruments
would
at that
do
point.
that.
we stopped being a marching band for a hot minute while we want to kiss the finish line, and then we sit on kind of like in the center area, and we play some stuff every now and then. And then is it the next day? Right, the next day we march through Indy.
No, that's before the parade, or that's before
Oh,
the track.
is it?
Yeah,
Okay.
we march
Got it
through
backwards.
Indy as we do the parade, which is actually the worst part.
That part's terrible.
Some
Absolutely
people
awful.
there's arguments to be made whether or not the track is worse than the actual like parade.
The track is hotter, but it's way shorter.
Yeah, the track would be worse if they had the same length. But
Yes.
since the track is
Yes, it
significantly
would.
shorter than the parade, it's not as bad.
The parade, how long is the parade again? It's a few miles, right? Like it's good. It's a good
For
length.
some reason, I want to say like 2.5 miles, but
Well,
I think
Yeah.
it's wrong.
the
full
entire
uniform.
raceway. Are you guys talking about like the raceway? Or are you guys talking about like the lead up to the raceway?
the
We
day
do
before
a
the parade,
pre-parade.
yeah, or the day
Oh,
before the
shoot.
race.
Yo,
We
shout
marched
out.
through Indianapolis
Oh, that's sick.
for like a pre-Indy 500 parade, and it's like Jason said, I think like a 2.5 mile parade, and it's hot.
Yeah, the
It
thing
is
about it is
hot.
it's hot in May, and we're gonna be doing it in August.
Oh,
Oh,
my
yeah.
God.
So it's gonna be
Post
even
band
hotter,
camp.
and it's gonna be the week after band camp.
Oh, so
Yeah.
I'm
everyone's
so
gonna be
sorry
dead.
for your loss.
So we get a bunch of volunteers to basically walk next to each rank with a water bottle, and the entire time we will pass it down ranks, just like throwing it back. And I think in a previous episode I studied up. By the way, guys, I watched some
Oh.
episodes.
Ooh.
I think Jason mentioned that it's a big thing for us to not take off uniforms in public. And at the end of the Indy 500 parade, or the pre-parade to the Indy 500, we got to our like location where all of our buses and all of our cases were and stuff, and they just said, take them off. Just don't, like, usually we'd have to get on the bus to change and get in some semblance of uniformity before we could exit the bus to put our instruments away. But they just said, just take them off. Just so we took off our jackets, we took off our overalls, just stripped essentially, because people were dropping. Like
Was
like
that
people were
your
passing
freshman
out.
year?
This
I don't
was
think we did that last year.
yes,
Did
we
we?
did.
We did?
Yes, we did. I remember distinctly.
He doesn't remember because he dropped.
I was probably
he was
blacked
one of the
out.
ones that he was the reason why you had to take it all off.
Yes. Jason,
He
come
actually-
on.
No, if I passed out, she would notice because she would be the one to walk over me. She's
Oh, yeah, the
right-
mellows.
the mellows are right in front of percussion. So if any one of
Yeah.
the mellows go, she'll notice.
I always pick somebody to stare at. Like, I don't know what it is. It helps me focus to not like feel the burn, as it were. Oh my God, it's
Yeah,
ridiculously hot.
you
And
gotta do your thing.
yeah, and the worst part about it too, carrying a drum, right? Not great. I'm not gonna complain about it, but it's not great when it comes to like the heat and marching 2.5 miles. But our uniform jackets, we wear sweatbands on the ends because they're when they're open, our sticks can get caught in the sleeve and like it'll screw up our playing, or we'll throw them. So we play with System Blue drums, and we're sponsored by them. So we got System Blue sweatbands too. So we put them around the end sleeve so it's like sealed. So we get no relief.
Oh, it's a furnace. Oh God.
We get no
Yeah, just-
relief. It's
just
only out of our
heating, you just-
collar.
Ooh.
And when it
Oh.
comes out of our
Ooh.
collar, you could feel like the
Yeah.
heat air from your it's
Uh,
terrible, man.
The
And the
parade
quads are funny.
when they're
That
giving
is-
you waters, like at the beginning of the parade, most of us like you're just like waterfalling a sip, and then like half of the other parade, you're just like tossing it onto yourself, and then like near the end of the parade, you're just taking the water and just dumping it down your chest.
Like, but sometimes the funny part about that is that you're not actually trying to dump it on yourself. You're trying your best to make it in your mouth, and you're just missing.
I actually have another question about that now, because he just said he just said, what do you call it when you're like trying to take a sip of water but you're not trying to touch like the cap?
Waterfall. What do you mean?
Okay.
What else would it be?
So you call it a waterfall. Jason, what do you call it?
I literally said waterfall.
Okay, Craig, don't
It's a
mess this
waterfall.
up.
It's a waterfall.
Okay, good. Okay, so we're all on the same page here, because I've heard some people call it an air sip, and I've heard some
Uh-huh.
people call it a sky.
I think
And I
we've
wanna-
had this conversation before.
Yeah, I know,
Yeah.
but this is an important thing. It's an important thing that. So we're all on Team Waterfall.
Yeah,
Most of the country's on
what
Team
it-
Waterfall. I
what
don't
would
think
a
I've ever heard
sky
any other.
be?
I
Yeah,
have heard sky sips. I have heard that before, but not
I think
that
it might be
Sky
an
Tip.
East Coast thing. I don't think I've ever
I don't
heard
know.
it said in the
East
Midwest.
Coast. Hey man, I am literally
We're
in
back with
Virginia.
3 East Coasters again.
Gang, East Coast gang.
East
Also-
Coast, East Coast.
So what I was looking up, the thing with IndyCar and NASCAR, it's happening next week, not anywhere close to the Indy 500. So no need to
So
worry.
you were
about
wrong.
that. Yeah, that's fine. Hey, sometimes you gotta be wrong and you gotta admit it. What?
I
What'd you
trusted
say?
you. I trusted you. Shame on you.
Why
I
would you ever
trust-
trust me? That's like rule number
How could you
one.
let Craig down?
Yeah. How could you do this to me and Steve Peichel? How
And
could you do that to
it
us?
to his corn?
Yeah.
Dude, the core.
Poor corn. Is that from the Nebraska episode and you just never took it off?
No, this has been here since before that.
Oh,
Nah, he's just
okay.
gonna keep it on.
Yeah,
I'm
it's
glad-
just, it's just part of the aesthetic.
I'm glad that we have people that actually listen to the podcast. Yay. We
Well,
have
when Jason mentioned
listeners.
this to me yesterday, I
She was like, I don't know what I'm getting into.
Oh, I had some
Yeah,
free
I-
time, so
I had 4 free hours, so let me just.
yeah, I mean, yes, I had nothing to do.
I mean,
Hey,
really,
sometimes-
there is nothing else to do, so.
sometimes
So make sure
when
you
in,
guys follow and subscribe and all that good stuff because you got
So-
nothing else to do.
sometimes when in Rome, I mean, you know,
Right.
or when in Virginia.
Speaking of Rome, Caroline, have you heard anything about an international trip? That you can
talk
I have
about?
I've heard that for the most part, at least for the fall, I can't say anything for like a spring trip. But for the fall, pretty much all travel is out. So I don't think we're doing an away game. I don't think we're sending the ones to be like a pep band for a game. We're not even like going to the dinner at Donor's house. I'm trying to remember.
I know what you mean.
We're not even going there because they'd have to stuff us all on a bus and it's not safe.
What about the IU game then? No?
I don't think so, no.
Makes sense.
Especially because that one happens like in November.
Mm-hmm.
So
So
it'd be
what-
cold.
So wait, so do you guys usually travel internationally? Because I remember there being a thing where like,
She got to go.
or
Because it was her
Purdue-
freshman year, they went to Ireland.
Yeah,
I
I was
missed
gonna
out.
say they were at the St.
That
Patrick's
sounds
Day parade,
fun.
right?
Oh yeah, everyone
Yeah.
always talks about Ireland.
That
And
parade was dope,
everyone
though.
in my class and the years like continuing on are like, I guess I've never been there.
That I gotta say though, that trip was really fun. Not only because like it was St. Patrick's Day, and we have a history of going there on St. Patrick's Day. So Ireland was all about us.
18.
The drinking age, 18. Yeah, they had to be a little bit strict about sending 300 some college students just out to Ireland.
Take
I mean, trip
advantage of
was
that.
expensive though. It was an expensive trip, but it was so worth it. I remember I was exhausted. I fell asleep every single time we were on the bus, and we were on a bus visiting different locations multiple times throughout the day. I was out like a light every time we got on that bus. But the parade was amazing. And here's why. It was a long parade. It was the longest one I've ever done. We marched for like an hour plus, like just straight,
Wow.
no stopping. Yeah, it sounds terrible, but it was like 50 degrees, a little bit like the wind was cold. It was a little
that's
humid, but like
nice.
that chilled,
It
foggy
was
humid.
crispy.
Oh,
Yeah, so
cool.
starting
I
to
like
play.
that.
I don't know how it is for you mellows and saxophones, but when we play with cold hands, it's nearly impossible to do anything properly until your hands warm up to the temperature. It was cold enough in which I had to like fist my stick rather than play with it properly because my fulcrum just was not like right here. When you play, your stick stays here. It was not withstanding the temperatures. I had no grip. I had no control. So I had to like fist my stick and pretend that I was doing it properly until my hands warmed up like 5 or 10 minutes later. And then I could play correctly. But that parade was awesome because I wasn't even tired at the end. There was a bunch of drunk Irish people the entire stretch that were like,
Nice.
whoa! Yeah, they loved the drum. Man, they loved the drum. Oh, that was so fun. They loved that thing. God, they were so
So you
drunk.
brought the big drum with you all the way to Ireland.
Yes, that was
Wow.
a whole thing. I don't.
I
even
can imagine that'd
remember.
be a logistical nightmare.
I think I don't remember how they got it there. I don't think they flew it,
They didn't
but I
fly
could
it?
be wrong. I don't know. Would that fit on a plane? Because they can't take it apart.
No,
Just
the
throw it
drum
on a little-
crew ran
a little
across
Cessna.
the ocean to Ireland.
They used
They
it as a
jived when
raft.
hitting the drum on the way to Ireland.
They took one of the heads off and made it like a boat, and they just paddled their way.
They use the other head, the one that they took off, as the paddle.
Yes,
That makes
Yeah.
so much sense. I mean, it's
I
full.
kind of feel like they boated it, but I don't remember. I remember when we went to San Francisco that same year.
I missed out on that one too.
Wait,
Man,
was that a
was
bowl
a good
game?
bowl game. That was
That was a bowl game.
That was against
Oh,
Arizona.
was that the Foster Farms Bowl?
Yeah.
Heck yeah, Santa
That was
Clara, Levi
when we
Stadium.
we had a lightsaber battle. That one was fun.
Ooh,
Yeah, you got to watch
Sounds
it. It's
awesome.
actually really cool. We
I
had
would
the
definitely.
two people, our two lines that were the lightsabers. They had lights on their uniforms that were green and red.
that's so awesome.
Yeah, you can hear the crowd just go, "Whoa!"
I don't think I've ever shown you guys the lights on our uniforms and what they look like.
They're tricky.
Let me see if I
They're
can
tricky
find them.
boys. They're very inconsistent.
So I was gonna ask. So while Jason's pointed up, how is San Francisco? Because I've been wanting to go out to San Francisco for a while for reasons that probably none of you guys would go out there, and it's mainly for baseball. Because like I want to see the Giants stadium, and like I really want to go to a game there. But like, how was San Francisco? Like how is it as a city?
It's nice. It's a little dirty. I'm gonna be honest. In my
Oh.
freshman year, I wasn't feeling. I mean, you know how every city you go into, there's like little pockets of stink kind of
Yeah.
roll through the city. Yeah, that was the times. I mean, it's beautiful out there. It is, and there's definitely some really nice areas. Very touristy at the time too, though. There was crowds everywhere, lines everywhere.
Okay.
I do have to say, when we left, I had to leave at like 2 a.m, like because we all kind of had to fly back separately, and
Okay.
it was a technical nightmare. I can't even imagine how they organized this, Purdue, but
Shout out
they
Purdue.
they flew a bunch of people into San Francisco, and they flew a bunch of people out, and they paid for everyone's tickets. It was fantastic. We didn't have to pay a dime. But I had to leave at like 2 a.m. because I had to
Really?
fly across the country against the I forget what they're called, prevailing winds essentially. It's harder to fly west to east than it is east to west.
Yeah.
So
The tailwind, right? Tailwind.
kind of, I
The
can't
jet
remember the
stream.
term.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, jet stream,
So,
tailwind.
one of those things. Yeah,
Yeah.
here I am, a senior in aviation management. I can't even. It doesn't matter.
We're
not
all
flying
good. We're all
plane.
good.
But yeah, so it took like 8-10 hours to fly this way, but it took like 4-ish hours to fly this way.
Oh, geez.
So I had to leave to get to the airport via subway. Also a fun experience, the subway at 2 a.m. in San Francisco. I
San
bought
Francisco
myself
is
a little like pocket knife so I could walk the streets feeling okay about walking the streets by myself at 2 a.m. And then when I got to TSA, I just like threw it out. It was like
Yeah.
$10. I was like, it's not.
Exactly. It gives you that peace
I
of
did
mind.
not
you know.
expect San Francisco to be like this. San
No, San
Francisco is
Francisco
taking me
was
by
wild.
surprise. San Francisco's taking me by surprise.
But yeah, that was it. I also was taken by surprise, I will say. But no, it's honestly otherwise like it's a beautiful city. It's a little expensive compared to East Coast and Midwest
Mhm.
costs for restaurants and stuff, just because cost of living and stuff is
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
California's
true.
just expensive all around.
Yeah, exactly. But it was nice.
That's awesome.
The stadium was beautiful.
Here's our
What
is
that?
lights. I just pulled it up.
Yo,
Oh.
sick.
They really pop in the night.
So we have cords essentially on each of our shoulders, and we just change the cords with light strips. And we have a
That's so
battery
sick.
pack, like fanny pack on our tailbone.
That's so
Back
awesome.
there.
Yeah. Once again, technical nightmare. I don't understand how they, but every single
Yeah, that's
single
the
pack
magic
that
of
I've
Disney
received,
animation.
Yeah.
It's just
every single pack that I've received has been trash. It's been falling apart. It flickers. The colors change. The lights
Well,
turn off in the
you
middle.
know,
Yeah.
in the
always
defense
bad.
of all the electrical engineers that worked on that project, it's
Mhm.
hard because those packs have to go through a lot. There's
Yes, they
300.
do.
There's like 380 of them. They have to work consistently every time.
that
And
is
there's
true.
the chips in there that they use, and like all the connections are so fragile and
Yeah.
then we're low trained the whole time, and the thing is bouncing off our backs.
Mhm.
The things are bound
Yeah,
to
it
get
goes-
loosened up.
It goes through a lot for sure. Like I understand why. It's just I've never, and as cool as they are, I've just never had a phenomenal working experience alongside a light pack.
So I want to get into like a game day experience at Purdue in 1 sec. Compare the two: the Metro in DC versus the Metro system in San Francisco. Which one's better? If you've used the Metro in DC, which I'm assuming that you probably have.
I have a few times. They're better in their own ways, I suppose. When I'm thinking about it, I used the Metro in San Francisco very sparingly. I think I used it like twice.
Okay.
And you know, because it's such a big city, that sucker is efficient. Like it's really like well timed, and it's not very clean, I suppose, but neither is DC's.
You know, the newer ones are cleaner.
Yeah,
Cleaner.
but it's not ideal.
Yeah,
And,
no, that's true.
I don't know about San Francisco because I don't keep up with their subway
Okay.
system at this point, but
Hey,
DC's,
I mean, some people do.
True.
it's your passion. I'm not gonna go ahead, do your thing. But the one in DC is expanding out, and it's they're like renovating the mall, and they're making new stations farther, you know, closer to my county. A lot of people who work in DC live in my area and like my adjacent counties, so they're extending the subway system, the railway system, all the way out here. So
Yeah, the
my
Metro's-
normal perspective of them is that they're brand new and they're beautiful.
Yeah. Oh no, the Metro's great. I love the Metro, especially at Maryland, because they were supposed to build one on campus. They never actually did it, but they built it like just
Wow.
off campus, and now they're gonna build like a light rail system that's gonna like completely destroy campus. But you know,
Nice.
construction's great.
Gotta love
But
it.
gotta love it. But man, let me tell you, the Metro is a great thing, especially like for the times that I have gone to Nats games. We're on the Green Line, so like the Green Line just takes me right down to the Navy Yard, and like I could go to like a Nats game or like a DC United game with ease. I also went to a DC Defenders game. Shout out XFL. Oh, great time. Oh,
The
man,
XFL.
the
Hashtag
XFL
bring
was.
it back.
I went to the first ever, the new XFL. I went to the first ever game, and I will never forget it. It was so much fun. Like, God,
Oh, awesome. I remember I didn't know it was a thing until I was sitting at a bar with my friend, and we looked up and it said XFL, and we're like, what the heck is that?
Oh, it was a thing, all right. It
Yeah.
didn't last for
We were like, what?
very long.
There's
But,
another one?
Yeah, it was a time. It was a lot of fun. It was definitely a lot more fun than people thought. But I guess, you know, talking about football, game day experience for a Purdue game, whether that be a night game or a day game, you know, depending on the kickoff. Can you describe that, both you and Jason, I guess, from your different perspectives? Can you describe that?
Sure. So, if we have a noon kickoff, we have to be at the field kind of around 7, give or take, depending on the game and the weather and whatnot. For me, for drumline, we have drumline lockers where we can store our drums because we're not supposed to keep our equipment in our dorms like most of the other bandsmen sometimes do. And so we keep our uniforms in there as well. So we all show up to Elliott Hall Music. We all get dressed. We have a speaker in there playing a bunch of meme songs. It's a great time. It's a very hype time. We'll check each other's uniforms. We'll check each other's instruments, make sure they're tuned up and they're looking all pretty. We'll head out to Hall Field, get there at 7. Our practice field, by the way, I don't know if you guys were aware of this or if Jason mentioned it. Our practice field is just like pavement. We don't have grass or turf. We just have like
asphalt.
Yeah, it's just
And painted
asphalt that
lines.
we paint,
Oh,
and
that
we
was
have
like
a few towers around it.
oh, that was like
and
my
there's
high
a shed.
school.
Yeah, yeah.
That's really bad.
It's not awful,
Honestly,
I don't think. I never noticed
prefer
it.
it.
Oh, you
I
prefer
don't
it
think I
to
ever
a-
had like an asphalt practice field. I've had like obviously like lot warm-ups in like high school competitions.
Oh, my
And I
high
think we've
school
always had like a dirt practice field, or like when I got to Rutgers, we had a turf practice field.
Oh, my
or,
high
like,
school's
game days
practice
and
field was like legitimately our parking lot.
Yes, so was ours. Yeah, I mean, but my high school, my area basically doesn't care about the music departments
much.
or
Oh
Yeah.
God, that's not
Yeah.
good.
So we didn't really get anything. We had old equipment. We weren't very great in terms of competitiveness. But we used an asphalt practice field there. So I think I prefer it here because I'm just used to it.
Hmm.
I've been used to it.
So is it like a separate thing, or is it like a parking lot that has this on it?
It's separate.
Okay.
It's right next to our we have
Tennis.
beach volleyball there and tennis.
Oh, that's sick.
Okay. Beach volleyball was funny because obviously it's just courts of sand, and if there's wind coming from the wrong direction, we're just getting sand in our face and all up in our stuff.
Yeah.
Awful placement, but I mean, I can't really complain. But anyway, so we show up to Hull. We got to be there at 7. Drumline specifically has to be starting our warm up right at 7, or whenever our initial time is.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Jason, you might be confused. Our call times are a little
confused.
different than yours.
I was like,
Okay, we have to. Drumline has to get there a half hour before the band has to get there, essentially, because we do our playing warm-ups in that half hour between our arrival and our uniform inspection. So we'll just say at this point, 7:30, the entire band has to be at Hull. We're done with our warm-ups at this point. We will get into inspection block, in which they inspect all the section leaders first. And this inspection is just like a visual, uniformity inspection to make sure that we are all correct and that we're looking the way we're supposed to be looking, that our uniforms aren't falling apart or whatever, or our P isn't sideways. I don't know why that thing isn't
It happens to
cemented
me
in
literally all the time.
it's so
every
dumb.
picture that we've taken of me on game day, my P is always a little bit crooked.
Yeah,
It's
so
it's horrendous.
in our uniform hat, we have a star, and then we have a Purdue block P in it, and the Purdue block P is like a separate entity from the star, so it can
What?
twist.
But
I know.
Why though?
I know.
That's so
I have no idea. But it's a problem.
Investigative journalism podcast. We need to get down to the bottom of this.
But it's a problem. It's something that we have to check because some people's P's will be sideways.
You flip it
So
upside
you
down
have
and make a D.
Well,
B.
D.
that's a B.
Jason's
Wait.
face.
It's a D.
Jason's face just went into he was like,
Utter confusion.
Very weird.
Howdy, folks.
lowercase
Welcome to
d.
Purdue.
Purdue.
Purdue University.
Oh, God.
So we do a very thorough uniform inspection with the section leaders first, and that's done directly by the directors and the assistant directors and whatnot. And then the section leaders will go to their sections or their ranks and inspect everyone in their rank or section. And we can give gigs at that time, which is essentially
Demerit.
points. Yeah, it's a demerit. And if you get enough gigs, then you have to be a GDS. I'll explain what GDS is later. Essentially means you can't perform in pregame or halftime. You're like a backup member to fill in a hole if somebody can't. So after we finish inspection and everything, we have our whole routines and stuff. We have to go to our drum majors and tell them, these people got gigs. This is the reason. We have a sheet that we have to fill out and we can give it to them. And we also tell them our attendance. And then our professor, our associate director, Professor Conaway, will announce the attendance from the tower. And it's a big thing if he's like, we have everyone here. We're like, woo!
We have one person not on time.
Yeah, and we're like, oh, damn. Justice.
Fucking Susan, you're late again. I'm gonna have to beep that out.
Yeah, Craig, I was about to say you're getting to quack that one out.
Quack. I like that. So then we do inspection and everything, and we go into our music arcs. Right? Have I missed anything so far, Jason? I think this is about right. It's all kind of blurred together for me.
No, you're on track so far.
Okay, so we go into our music arcs. The band does their music warm-ups, scales, whatever mess you guys do. I don't know. I hit
Mess.
And,
Perfect. We've never been out of tune.
And well,
Never.
well. I don't even have ears for it, and sometimes it's noticeable. But that's what it's for. It's tuning and warm-ups and whatever. And then we play through Purdue Hymn, beautiful song. We sing a beautiful backup to it, the drum line. Oh man, you don't want to be back there. We're talking about out of tune stuff. Like, listen to a drum line of 34 tone deaf men plus like 4 women try their best.
It's
wait,
you're trying.
Caroline, you did miss something. We have 2 drum lines. Right?
Yeah.
I feel like that's important.
So my freshman year, they implemented our second drum line, which is like it's a tailgating secondary drum line called the Boiler Beats. And essentially they go around to tailgates and to different locations around the stadium before the game starts, and they play through our cadence sequence and everything. And they have other like pep songs that they can play, and they do a bunch of fun stuff, and they have a fun time with the crowds, and they get everyone all hyped up for the A and B to come in and do their thing, and then football to come in and try their best to do their thing. And
for better or worse.
For better or worse.
It was too
Yeah,
good.
so we have 2 drum lines. That was because that we accept, I don't remember the exact number off the top of my head, quick maths. So 35 plus like 7 or 8 drum crew people. So about 40 or so.
Mm-hmm.
And we had like 75 people auditioning. So we'd have to cut basically an entire drum line's worth of people. So we're like, well, we cycle through drums now and again. So we have a whole drum line's worth of drums. Why are we letting these people just not participate and lose their chops and basically have no chance to audition again? So the Boiler Beats is essentially they tailgate and they have a great time, but they also work directly with Dr. Nave to improve their technique and endurance and strength and work on cadences and all the basic stuff, so they can have a much better chance the next year they audition than if they weren't in any drumline whatsoever.
Mm-hmm.
So fun fact, we have a second drumline. It's very new. It's a little baby. It's 4 years upcoming.
Like that. That's
4-year birthday.
That's like
That's
a
pretty
really cool like way to just kind of keep people involved, even though they're kind of cut. Keep them doing something.
We don't like saying cut in this house. We say transitioned.
Ah, okay.
Mm-hmm.
So it's funny for us, we can transition like kind of 2 times. So if you don't make the A and B, you can get transitioned to the Boiler Beats. And then if you don't make the Boiler Beats, you get transitioned to an indoor ensemble. So basically everyone who participates in band camp and auditions will have a chance to play in some sort of ensemble, whether
Well, that's cool.
Yeah, it's really cool. We're very inclusive here at our non-competitive, non-music school program. So
Okay, so now then after we do our
post-music
warm-ups,
arcs.
we do run through we run through like 1 or 2, usually we'll run through pregame, all of pregame,
Mm-hmm.
and then we'll do like some parts of halftime, or we'll just run through halftime once, just to like remember how to do it and make sure we can fix some littler things.
We do little tweaks. It
doesn't usually take that long.
No, but we also like, if we have GDS members, they're called game day staff, and like I said, they're backup people to fill in holes, because it's a thing for us to not march any holes whenever we can. So if somebody gets injured and they weren't on GDS, and we have a GDS person fill in their hole, no matter what they're playing. You'll see a trombone where a baritone was, or you'll see, it'll just be random, whatever we have on deck that can do it, and they'll take that time that Jason said where we run through halftime or whatever to learn their drill, like in the 20-30 minutes that they get.
That's like an emergency thing though. Like if someone's like seriously out of commission on game day, that doesn't happen very often, I don't think. Yeah,
and usually the GDS staff, like, they practice drill somewhat, so they're at least familiar, so it doesn't take them long to adjust at all. So we run through pregame and halftime, and then afterwards we tailgate, and our tailgate, essentially, we eat and hydrate and prep ourselves for our journey to the stadium. Yeah, so it's fun, actually. In our uniform pants, they're new too. They're also like 3 years old or something. In the back of our uniform pants, we have a pouch and the pouch is supposed to be for our raincoats, which come in little bags, and we're supposed to stuff them in the pouch. So if it's a day that it's supposed to rain, we have our raincoats with us, and we all look like hunchbacks, but at least we have it. But if we don't have the raincoat, that thing is prime food storage. Prime food storage. Like, you don't have to stuff in our socks, or like sometimes you put stuff in your hat because there's a lot of room, but the back, prime location right there. It's
actually,
so
I don't put, like, I try not to put anything in my back because so we have this one guy who takes he edits his pictures really well. And he took one of me, and it was such a good picture, except you can very clearly see my back going.
Yeah.
So,
if you look at pictures,
I try from now on to never ever put anything in my back. So I do what Craig basically said. Like, I have a whole system. I wear extra long socks so I can stuff stuff in my socks. I usually put stuff, like, if I'm wearing like a shirt and then a shirt underneath, I'll put it inside the shirt. So not touching me, but like in between the two shirts.
Mm-hmm.
I'll put stuff in my waistband, like in my pockets. So like when we get to the stadium, it's really hard to like take everything out, but it looks much better.
Yeah, it does. I have to say,
it's all about the style points.
I mean, I'm wearing a harness underneath my jacket anyway, so I'm already bulky. So it kind of evens out the back if I have bulk pushing in like my mid back.
Like,
but
hey.
also I am dating. My girlfriend is in color guard. I've been asked not to disclose any other information, but she can't, in her uniform, unless it's winter and she has her coat, she doesn't have any room to put anything because she has a completely different uniform. So I actually carry 2 people's worth of food in my back. And when we get to the stands, I put it all in a Ziploc, and I just rip the Ziploc out, and I give it to the person on the end of the color guard line, and I say, give this to blah, blah, blah. And yeah, I feed Milady on game day.
Hey, that's smart. So
yeah, I'm a pack mule. It's fine.
So so then you guys go into the stadium, perform pregame, I'm assuming.
Yeah, we have a little bit that we do beforehand. We tailgate, and then we march to Slater Center, which is just a stage not too far away from. It's an outdoor stage, not too far away from the stadium, and we do a performance there. And that's when a lot of the band people, the band fans, will watch us because it's a stage, and then it's a huge hill, like right by the opening of the stage. So it's like a perfect place for people to stand there and watch. And then from there, we march to north end zone of the stadium, and then we do a little concert there that's like 10 minutes long.
Okay.
And we'll run through the same basic like list of 6 songs, and then we'll march down the east side, which is a huge hill. I almost wipe out every time we go down that hill. And then we'll go in to the stadium, and we'll get in the stands, and we have maybe 10 or 15 minutes to set ourselves up in the stands. And for me, that's getting my drum stand, because we use drum stands in the game stands.
Okay.
And we set it up. We make sure we're evenly spaced, all 11 of us from end to end. I don't think, Jason, you can probably attest to this, but you guys don't like stay in a set order or rank while you're in the stands, do you?
I mean, there's like an unofficial one, but there's really no like. You can like, if you wanted to go on that side, someone senior might be like, "Hey, you're kind of in my spot," but like no one, it's not official.
Right.
Like you're not going to get yelled at by the directors.
The drum line is always in the same order, just because that we practice so much with listening to specific people, and we're ordered in a specific way that like people with similar play styles are next to people with similar play styles, so it's a lot easier for you to listen. Yeah, there's a whole. It's a lot more complicated than you would think, Jason. Yeah, it is.
Whoa.
It's a lot more complicated.
Jason's like, whoa, what is this?
There's a whole science
much.
informing the line. There's a whole science there.
Never gonna look at
Yeah,
drum
yeah.
lines.
I was like, oh yeah, just put the good person in the middle, and then kind of the further off you
Spread
get, I
out as
guess.
you go.
Yeah, it's pretty lit.
Yeah.
Okay,
So
well, it's pretty dope. Well, it
Yeah,
sounds like
so-
Purdue's a lot of fun.
it is fun. Yeah,
I think so.
We'll do that order.
It's okay.
We'll run out to pregame. Pregame's a whole party. That's always fun. And then we'll come back in. All of our stuff is set up, so it's great. Then we go all the way to halftime, and we do the normal band thing. We play music and stuff in between plays, and we'll do halftime. And halftime is a blast. And then we come back in. Normal game day. And then at the end of the game day, we will do a post game day concert out on the field where we'll play
Fifth
through.
quarter?
Yeah, kind of.
Essentially,
I mean, we don't call it
essentially.
that, but yeah, that's
Oh, we
essentially
call it
what
that.
is. We call it post-game concert or some generic.
Yeah, I think it's literally called post-game concert.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah, so we do that, and like we're performing to all of 30 people, and then we'll march out, and sometimes depending on the weather, we will do drum major breakdown, which is an absolute bop. It's such a good time. We'll go to our big fountain right in front of, oh man, Hovde.
Hovde.
Yeah. Did you say Hovde?
Yeah, what'd you say?
Oh, Hovde. I emphasize the O.
Hovde.
Oh, well, okay, great. It's Hovde.
Fight!
Anyway, I guarantee I'd win.
Those be fighting words.
Those be World Star.
I'm gonna get freaking
Anyway.
knocked out during game days.
I'll smack you over the head with my drum, and I'll take care of everything. I mean, you can defend with your mellow, but I guarantee you my drum's a little heavier.
I won't see it coming.
Anyway, so I think you would. I'm not exactly graceful.
If we're in parade, I won't see it. You can just run up behind me and smack me on the head.
I guess I
and
could.
then step
yeah,
over me on the way out.
Man,
Stop giving her ideas.
Stop giving her ideas.
So we'll do drum major breakdown, which is so fun. I'm not going to explain it. There's plenty of videos on YouTube, but it's so fun. And then right at the end, we'll march back into Elliott, and then we get dismissed, and then usually there are some festivities afterwards. And I will say festivities.
Yeah, festivities. So I wanted to go into one thing, and then I kind of wanted to just talk more about student life. So you brought up, obviously June is Pride Month, and you talked about you being bisexual, but also the interesting stories in San Francisco. But how is culture within college marching band and within high school marching band when it comes to people that are of the LGBTQ plus family? Like how open is it? How has it been? How have you seen it changed over the last few years?
Well, I'd honestly say I felt incredibly welcome to be who I was when I got onto campus in general, just on Purdue's campus. But band kids, like band kids are band kids. They're super accepting. A lot of them happen to be gay. And it's just, I honestly have always felt like it's been an incredibly welcome environment, that I'm totally allowed to be who I am, and everyone's just totally cool with it. And it's one of the things I love about band, honestly, is just how accepting everyone is and how chilled out everyone is. And I mean, once in a while, once in a blue moon, you'll run into somebody who thinks otherwise. But for the most part, the culture is that we're just here to do band. We all love music. Let's just have a good time,
Yeah.
So I'd say, honestly, though, college, a lot better for me. My high school, we actually did a survey about this my junior year. Literally 50% conservative, 50% liberal. So I didn't feel comfortable being out in high school, even though a few people in my marching band that I was close with knew. I wasn't out in high school. And then when I got to college, literally like 2 days into me doing band camp, I was like, I felt totally open to be who I was. So that was wonderful. I don't know, like that was an incredible feeling, from being closeted for the 2-ish years that I knew that I was bi, to just finally getting to be totally comfortable. And on that as well too, going to Purdue from Virginia, there's not really anyone I know who goes to Purdue. In fact, I believe my year I was the only one to go to Purdue. So that was really appealing to me, that nobody knew me. It was all going to be new relationships and friendships. And it was kind of like a start over, like a do-over, kind of to be who I wanted to be and kind of change my image a little bit, how I felt more comfortable. Because, you go through high school, middle, elementary with the same people, and they all have an idea of who you are. And it's hard to change that idea. And if you start to change it, they might, judge you for it or give you a hard time for it. But when you go into college and nobody knows you, fresh start right off the bat. So overall, though, I think the marching band community is incredibly open and welcome to that fact. I've never heard or experienced anything that has told me otherwise. So I've always felt comfortable.
Well, that's awesome. That's awesome to hear, and I'm glad that Purdue has allowed and given you those experiences, and also that you were the only one from your high school that went there, so you're able to just kind of like start anew, as you said.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So I guess, talking about Purdue, obviously there's a lot to do at Purdue and there's a lot of things going on. So I wanted to touch a little bit on student life and on what you guys are doing, because I know that we're nearing the end of this, and then I wanted to ask some final questions. But how is student life at Purdue? What things do you do on a regular basis with things? What are some like popular spots and places on campus for people, whether that be, like during the school day, or whether that be like stuff on the weekend and anything like that?
I honestly don't do much outside of band. I feel like a lot of band kids kind of feel that way. I do academic stuff. I hang out with my lady friend, and I do band. That's pretty much my life.
A lot of the times, actually, Elliot has like a band lounge, and I feel like a lot of the pre-band orchestra students like hang out in there during the day instead of like going to a different place on campus. Most of us will like stay in our little music bubble. I know. Yeah. I feel like I don't see many drumline people. I feel like they have their own little cave.
You do not see many drumline people there. That's something we're trying to fix is drumline people and the rest of the band people kind of segregating each other.
Oh, it's still culty. It's like it's true that like drumline's a cult.
Well, past few years we've been working on diminishing that a little bit.
Okay.
And it's better, but I also think the band a lot of the times doesn't bother associating with us. It doesn't help that like all of our drill and all of our music is separated.
Yeah.
So if you look at any of our drill, we're basically a box that moves up and down the 50.
Yeah.
We're not like part of any forms for the most part. So we don't get to talk with, like, if we're next to a saxophone in our form, we don't get to do anything. God forbid.
A saxophone.
Hey.
One time in drill, we were right behind the piccolos. We were right behind the piccolos. I don't know why they put the piccolos so far back. We were like 8 steps away from the back sideline. I don't know why they were back there. They've never been back there before. I was like, whoa.
They were probably completely covered up with the sound. It's not even.
Yeah, I swear. Only we could hear it. I don't. It was a bad time. I don't know why they were there.
I got something to say about getting covered up with sound, and then we'll get back to the student life question. But usually the Fridays before game days are called gold days. And if it's a Big Ten game that weekend, we'll march back and we'll go through the tunnel. And I've said before, and I'll say it again, the mellows are right in front of the snare line.
God.
I forget my earplugs a lot. So
yeah, well, that's your fault.
On the way back from Hallfield to Elliott.
That sounds like a you problem.
We go through the parking garage, and in the parking garage, everything just like, every sound just gets amplified by like a million. And they're behind us, and they're just going at it, They're like,
so instead of playing,
to kill my ears.
Instead of playing our regular music, we will do double shot quarter notes the entire time. So ga, 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 the entire time going through the parking garage, completely on purpose. And we will take the time, like 30 seconds before we get to the garage, by the way, Jason, to just say, okay, earplugs. And we'll have like half the people putting in earplugs, and they'll start playing, and the other half will throw in earplugs. Because we always have to have earplugs on us. But yeah, garage sale. You guys are also, not completely innocent in this scenario.
Oh,
you guys
play
like trains
too.
Oh man!
Like you play things that isn't music. You just do mouthpieces. You do golly.
Oh yeah, the train whistles were. Oh yeah, here I actually have one.
Man, those things are so annoying. To be completely honest, we had to
fight back somehow.
I get so annoyed when you do that. I honestly, but I can't play it. Perfect. I will keep playing double shots right in your eardrums.
I'm gonna bring earplugs.
Good luck. Yeah.
That's not gonna help. So the first time we did it as a freshman, actually we came out of the garage and my ears were like actually ringing, and I didn't hear anything until we like up I tell you. Go ahead, Alex. Sorry. It's a small segue.
So I was gonna say, so I guess with drumline, do you guys kind of all assemble at like one person's houses or like a drumline house that like you guys kind of like hang out and do stuff like that on the weekends or like during the week and stuff?
Yeah, there's we actually this year we have a few drumline houses. We have the main one that we've had for a few years. Passed down, all these drumline people in there. I'm living in a house this year, so hopefully we'll host a few events there. And there's another house too, but that one is full. I don't know why, but it's a small house and there's like 6 people living in it. But there's a lot of, just like every college marching band for the most part, a lot of bando houses. There's mellow house, there's trumpet house, there's sax house, there's tuba house, there's guard house. There's a whole mess.
I was about to ask if it was the same for like you guys, like Alex and Craig. If it's about the same, how there's like specific houses.
Yeah, there is stuff like that, and then there's me, the kid who's like in band but not really in band because he's a journalism major and he wants to do sports journalism, and no one else in band's like that, so he just lives with like 3 people in an apartment that like no other band people live with.
I think there are other houses that have band people at Rutgers, but the past couple of years there's only been one like real band house, and that was my house, the Rutgers low brass house. Although I'm a mellow, I was in the low brass house, and we were also known as the Boost House. You can see that little jug back there of Boost. It is a Jersey only, South Jersey specific cola that we got the entire Rutgers band hooked on. So Boost, if you're listening, give us that nice sponsorship.
Rutgers band sponsored by Boost.
Drumline House has a party foul tradition in which we have a dude who's lived at Drumline House past few years. Every time somebody, commits a party foul, spills a drink or whatever, he will run at them with a gong, curse them out, and go, and that's Drumline House. That's it. That's all we got.
That's pretty cool. Are there, I guess, on campus, are there like, or like just off campus, are there like a lot of places, like food places or other things like that a lot of people go to that are pretty famous?
Yeah, we have a few. We have Harry's, which is like the campus bar. That's like, they think they're better than every other bar on campus, and they might be right. That's always really hard to get into. What is that I'm thinking of?
I'm at 21, dude.
No, it's not a bar. It's Are you
talking about Triple X?
Yeah, Triple X. Triple X is it was featured on Diners, Drive-Ins, and Dives.
Oh, Triple D. I'm indebted to Guy Fieri.
You said Fieri.
Yeah, I know.
Right.
Yeah.
And with that proper pronunciation.
Yeah, that's the right way to say it. Come on.
I learned about it on Hot Wing.
But he is Guy Fieri. Everyone knows him as Guy
he's not. He's Guy Fieri.
Guy Fieri. Yeah.
Guy Fieri.
hard R. So Triple X is like a diner-esque thing where it's literally one huge counter and there's just a bunch of booths or a bunch of benches. And so you'll be sitting next to complete strangers and stuff, but service there is great, food's great. Chauncey is just like the only like food place or like food area on campus.
It's like a food mall like area. There's a lot of places around.
There's a random jeweler in there. Like there's a jewelry in there. I don't know what a jewelry thinks it's doing on Purdue, but
you got a lot of boba tea. If you're into that.
Yes.
I think it's really good.
It's really good. I downloaded an app to get.
I don't know. We're really not like a city school, so we don't have like those big like restaurants that people go to all the time. Mm-hmm. If you go to Lafayette, they have some, like if you go across the bridge into the city, you'll have some stuff, but most of it's just like a little small local places like Triple X will probably be the biggest thing that you.
Okay. All right. Well, I mean,
we say city. Cool. We say city loosely. It's more like a big town. Like it's not there.
The large town known as Lafayette.
Yeah, and we're in West Lafayette. You cross a bridge over the Wabash, which is a stinking hot cesspool of
you
a
should
river.
Go in there.
And man, if you go next to it, it stinks. Like it is legitimately tainted. Like it's not a healtzy river.
It's okay. The bridge is very high above the water, so you can't smell across the bridge.
But people will throw like, you know how like campus, like usually campuses have like bikes that you can like rent out. They'll like throw those things in there. Like
people are stupid.
Like we had electric scooters for a while. They all ended up in there.
People are stupid.
Yeah, but anyway, he's right. Like we don't live in like like next to a big city. It's a small town surrounded by corn. Across the
I know,
bridge
but
is a
that's
slightly
cool
bigger
because
town.
I mean that's cool because it's like a different vibe. I mean, every school has its own different vibe.
Hmm. Yeah, I really like it, honestly. It feels kind of like home. My area is like that too. I live right next to the Blue Ridge Mountains,
Okay.
and otherwise it's pretty rural.
Oh, Blue
So
Ridge
it's-
Mountains and Shenandoah River.
Yes.
Wait, I know it.
Some
I
of them
know
are
it.
older than the trees.
I understand.
As soon as you
Don't
said Blue
even
Ridge Mountain, I was
start.
like,
Oh, you get the joke?
The
Did you
wheels
know
are
that
spinning.
that's hey, that song is actually based on a road in Maryland, just letting everyone know.
Is it?
Really?
Yeah, hell
Owned by
yeah.
a dude named John Denver.
Well, I don't know why you,
well,
that's
the
not
road
the
in
important-
Maryland is taking him home to West Virginia.
Whatever. It's still in Maryland.
Yeah.
No, he's actually. But so I guess one more thing before I kind of go into like my my last two things, which I'm going to group together as one. If there's so other than football, if there's like a sport that you would say that like you would suggest like people to go to, just in terms of like an environment and an atmosphere type thing. Like what other sports have you gone to, and which one have you enjoyed the most?
I mean, that's really easy. We have a pretty good basketball team, men's basketball team. And apparently I've never been, but I've heard that the environment is insane at Mackey Arena. Insane. I've never been, but the videos I've seen, it looks so cool. And it's
Okay.
just
We
so
were just
hype and
voted
so
like the
loud.
#1 in college basketball
Yeah.
by like on
Like,
Twitter or
yeah.
something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I
Mackey
did see
Arena's
that. That
dope.
is pretty dope.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's cool. I'm trying to think. I've heard the volleyball games are pretty exciting. I don't know if we're particularly good or not at it, but you know,
Purdue's
Yeah.
pretty good at volleyball. Purdue is.
are we? Well,
Yeah,
that's
they're like
awesome. Good to hear.
they're like I'm trying to think like the best way to say it. They like fluctuate in and out of the top 25.
Yeah, I mean,
They're
that's
usually pretty good. They made like the national
get-
tournament this year.
Yeah, they get to the
Oh, shit.
NCAA tournament pretty often.
Oh well, there you go. Awesome. I'm glad to hear it. I don't know otherwise. Yeah, honestly, I think if I would say anything other than football, basketball would be the one to
Okay.
go
Okay.
for sure. For
Okay.
sure.
Yeah, yeah. I have heard the same thing. Although I will say, and I'm sure that you were there when Isaac Haas was there. You know the
Yeah.
tree man himself. He did give a girl an STD, and then there was like a whole
Yes,
case
he
about
did.
it. Hell yeah.
Yes,
So
there was.
he's a trash man.
It was a
and,
mess.
Yeah, it was.
It was a great time. Great time for Purdue University.
I mean, it's better than like a kid dying on the field, like in Maryland.
Oh, wait. Okay.
Oh, do
might
you
have to
remember
tell
that?
me about, no, I don't. I have
Oh,
no
so
idea
the
what
Jordan
you're talking
McNair
about.
thing. So basically, there was a kid. It was during practice. It was a couple years ago. A kid was practicing, started overheating, then like collapsed due to heat exhaustion. The strength and conditioning coach said, and I quote, "Get his ASS off the field." Or
Mhm.
drag his ASS off the field. So they literally dragged his body off the field, called in an ambulance. There's so much construction going on campus. The ambulance took way too long to get there. They could have prevented it with like cold water treatment, which is just like putting him in like a cold like bath thing.
Mhm.
Like they would have
Right.
it like a football
Lowers
workout.
temperature. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. And they apparently didn't do that because why be educated on that kind of stuff. So then he ended up dying in the hospital some days later.
Thank God.
And then a thing came out on ESPN about like the toxic culture surrounding Maryland. Then the coach got put on administrative leave. The president said he was going to resign from the university. Ended up leaving
Ooh,
this year. Like it was really bad.
that's a lot.
Like
but that is terrible.
look it up. It's a really 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 bad.
That's awful.
When
Yeah.
you mentioned that, I think I've heard of that before. It just didn't stick that it was Maryland.
it was really bad. Oh, I guess on the subject of that stuff, just because I thought about it. Since I know Purdue, I guess when a lot of people think of Purdue, people think of Purdue football, they think of the game against Ohio State a couple years ago, where they beat them prime time, and obviously that game was like
Glorious
a lot
day.
of people think of it as like the Tyler Trent game because he was like the big story of that game. What was your? I know we talked about it a little bit, but what was your interactions? As like the band's interactions with him and all of that stuff, how devastating was it in the community to find out about his passing, and how special was that game for you guys and on that day, and just like for the university in general?
Well, coming into that game, we were obviously very nervous for it. We were really nervous to get our butts handed to us at home. especially on a day that was, that was Tyler Trent was like, we're going to do it. And then we scored, I think after the first quarter, it was 14-3 or something like that. And we're like, okay, like we have a chance. We have a chance. They haven't scored a touchdown yet. And we got two. And then, it just kept getting farther and farther and farther as we went. And that was glorious. That was a glorious feeling, especially right at the end when I think we ended the game pretty much with a pick six.
We do. Marcus Bailey punctuating the upset with a pick six.
Marcus Bailey all the way. Yeah.
That's pretty
dope.
dope.
But that game was awesome. It was crazy hype. We had a fantastic halftime show that day. I mentioned this. It was also my birthday, which was nice.
Doubly awesome. Yeah.
Doubly awesome. But that day was Tyler Trent's day.
Did you guys get to rush the field?
No.
Oh yes. I mean, we didn't.
What?
No, we didn't.
So you guys rushed the field? We didn't?
Okay, so here's the thing about Purdue football is that we are a bunch of dramatic people over here. So every time we win a game, a game, people are like, let's rush the field. Like you might get like 50 people who do it for like an easy game, but then Ohio State, like literally it was full. You could see no field. It was everyone was on the field at that point. But no, we never get to do anything like that. We did flip our hats, and that was enough celebration for us.
Okay, that's pretty dope.
But we didn't rush the field. But Tyler Trent gave a speech at the end of it, I think. He got interviewed at the end of it. I don't remember exactly what he said, but I remember his passing was hugely impactful. I know a few people in the drumline who have tattoos like for Tyler Trent, like of his signature.
That's crazy.
And they, as Jason said earlier, they dedicated a student gate into Ross-Ade Stadium for Tyler Trent, and we had some marching band people go, and we played Hail Purdue and Purdue Hymn and a few good songs there to commemorate its opening and to show respect to Tyler Trent. But yeah, it was very, very impactful. It really did. There was a candlelight vigil as well. I went to that. That was very emotional. It was very, very emotional. There was a lot of people who were clearly emotionally distraught that he passed, and his family talked, and it was a lot. But I mean,
yeah, sorry to get a little bit depressing.
You're good. Absolutely, it matters for sure.
It was a huge thing, and I wanted to make sure that we touched upon it. But as a last thing, since we want to try to wrap this up, and then we're gonna we want to include you for the ending of it, which won't take too long. But for you, what's been the most enjoyable part of being in band, in marching band, whether that be in high school, the 1 year that you were in it in middle school and college, and for people that are considering joining band at any rank, especially in college, what I guess in your pitch, I guess could you give a pitch and why do you think that people should do band? Why is band so important to you?
So to me, the biggest thing marching band gave to me, besides giving me I don't want to sound corny, but it ignited a passion and a drive in me to excel at this specific thing, which is always good for anyone to have. But for me, more importantly, it gave me a home away from home and a second family. And I know everyone here is we're a family here, but it really did feel like that in both marching bands that I've been a part of. It pulled me out of a few deep emotional ruts that I've been in. It, like I said, my girlfriend is in color guard, introduced us, been with her for almost 2.5 years. So best relationship of my life came out of marching band. I have lifelong friends that I'm going to keep that I met in college marching band. They've helped me academically. It's been an invaluable resource to my life and incredibly beneficial to my mental and physical well-being, just to have that network of people that I can always go to and that I can always trust and rely on. It's worth all the work that you put in it and the risks that you would take and possibly a lot of the things that you might give up and the time that you might put into it to pursue this and to befriend all these people who are all wonderful people, all crazy wonderful people. Bandos are awesome people. So I would just say, honestly, I've met a lot of people who, like myself, get put off by, it's a college marching band, it's going to be hard, I'm going into college, I don't want to put in the time, I'm afraid I'll fail academically. Go for it. Just go for it. Even if you don't make it, even if you decide not to pursue it, you would have made a huge amount of friends and connections, and you would have made a home even if you didn't continue. Because I know we have a bunch of drumline people who got transitioned into our indoor ensembles, so they didn't participate in any marching instrument, but they're still like a deeply rooted part of our drumline family. They still participate in everything. They still get involved, and they always try out another year. Because they know how worth it is, and they love the connections we make. So I would say, like, in my experience, it's don't hesitate, go for it. Even if it doesn't work out, it's worth it, go for it. That's my advice.
All right. Well, I think that's a great way to end it. So thank you so much for doing this, Caroline.
Absolutely.
Thank you guys so much for tuning into this week's episode. We're going to have more fun next week, a lot more marching band. Hopefully some good news with the seasons coming up. But yeah, so from me, Jason, Craig, Caroline, thanks for tuning in, and we'll talk to you next week.